to record the last one and didn't record correctly. All right, well, it's the three of us, so let's hang out. So, did you all get a chance to, and there might be people that'll join late, but we're not going to wait any further now. I'm going to share, let me do this. Let me play.
You're frozen. Your video is frozen, so I don't know if you want to.
It is?
It's not frozen. It's not frozen for me.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
All right, so I'm going to share. Okay, so you all should see, actually, I did the whole screen, which is a big deal. Hold on, go here. There we go. Any questions about last week? Remember, we went through why does design matter? We did the survey. We covered the key components to good design, you know, constraints and restraint. I did share with you all what I used to do with my students around that. Communication, not decoration. We actually, remember, we talked about the characteristics or conditions of death by PowerPoint that all of us have been exposed to. Of course, the most common one is always too much text and reading from the slides. And then also, there we go. Remember, I shared with you all the activities that I used to do with my students on getting them thinking in terms of what does it mean to be a simplistic storyteller. And then we watched this. Remember, we watched this video on the flag design, which it's. So did I share with you all last week that I actually used to have, I had my students do an activity that was aligned with this, where I would send them a Photoshop template that was 250 DPI for resolution. And I actually did a different ratio than what he mentioned in there. I had him do 2 inches by 3 inches. So in landscape format, it's, you know, 3 by 2. And then they had to do some homework on different cities in the US, and then we did different international cities. So they had to understand the history of the city, characteristics of the city, highlights of the city. And then the whole idea was, you know, if you were to turn into a project-based thing, was you've been commissioned to redesign X city flag, and your flag has to fit the characteristics that you shared. So I said it had to use no more than 3 colors, no text, have some sort of significant symbolic connection to the city. And of course, for me, it was so easy that a 5-year-old can draw it. And it was really, really, I really wish I still had the examples that they did, because some of them were so amazing that they would just, again, it's what I love about those characteristics. So you see, I gave them constraints, I asked them to practice restraint, and now within those constraints, you can't add a lot of decoration because you don't have the room for it stuff. So what I would like to know from you two is, do you have any questions about principles of design and what we discussed to start?
So I was not able to participate last week.
Oh, okay.
So is it can I access it somewhere?
Yeah, so that is a TED Talk. If you just do a simple TED search, you do city flag design TED, it'll be the first result.
Okay.
And basically what he talks about is city flag design and what do he call them? The lexicological society. It's a very complex word to use, but basically the society that is set up for things like flag design. In fact, hang on, let me.
You know, if you want to show it again, that's totally fine with me.
Well, but the problem is it'll eat up too much of our time for this part, and I have another activity set up for us to do. But anyway, if you just watch it, there's a whole society there's a whole society centered around flag design. But it's a good TED Talk to watch because he analyzes different designs and why they're effective versus ineffective, what the characteristics are, and I just, you know, as I just shared, I'm giving away some of it. He talks about what are the characteristics, and so I used, like I said, I did that with my students for them to understand more deeply around really just affected flag design. So so it's the Vexillological Society. So vexillology um, is what it is, but the name of the society is the Vexillological Society. There. Anyway,
Sounds
the
perfect.
principles of this, the principles of design that were covered were aligned with these, which are again constraints and restraint, communication, not decoration, and being a simplistic storyteller. And so then we covered these questions last week. What are some of the key principles of design mentioned in the TED Talk? And they are, simplicity. Why do they matter? It's for ease of communication. And where have you seen both good design and bad design based upon those principles and stuff? So the homework assignment, which, Melinda, maybe I chased everyone off by giving them a homework assignment.
Maybe.
The homework assignment was to do this over the course of this last week was, see if you can identify anything in your daily life that represents good design principles, capture an image and share it next week. So the fact that homework might have chased everyone off kind of validates what I bring up in my keynotes around my staunch resistance to and stance against homework. So Melanie, did you happen to do your homework assignment and find anything in your everyday life that you might have captured that represents good design, good principles of design?
So this part of the homework I totally forgot and spaced out on, but I did read. But I do have the flag homework done. Like you wanted, there was another part where you wanted us to look at our city flag and see if we could redesign.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I did, and I forgot about this part.
Okay, well, I mean,
so I'm not backlit.
It's okay. I'll give you detention later. Do you want to share? I mean, I don't know why you can't share.
I do. So let me share. First of all, I think I could just wait, I have to put in the right permissions.
Okay. If you have a file on your computer, there's a way to add it to the chat by just attaching it to a message. So there's the paperclip in the chat. You should be able to put like an image file in there or something like that.
Oh, can I also just share the link because so you can see before and after. Okay.
Yeah, whatever's easiest for you. Yes.
Change the link. Okay, copy and done. And I think hopefully this will work. Let me try.
Okay, so I'll click on the link here. Oh wait, no, that's to the TED Talk. Okay, perfect. So Melinda, the direct link to the YouTube video of that TED Talk is in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
And then, okay, so flag makeover, Palo Alto.
That's it. And then I wanted you to see the before, and what I did with it is underneath the black box.
It's showing up as blank on mine.
Same.
The whole thing is showing up as blank?
Yeah, the middle is just showing up as black.
Oh, that's on purpose. So let me describe. So that's actually just the shape. You can see my redesign underneath the shape. I didn't want you to see my redesign before you looked at the original.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm looking at the original, which, Melinda, can you see the original to the left?
I can see it.
Yeah. So remember, before Melanie, before you reveal, so Melinda, in the TED Talk, he says, again, remember the following thing. So this is great. I really wish more people would have joined the session, but who cares?
I know, I'm dumb.
When you watch it, his whole idea around the most effective flag design is remember the conditions. No more than the use of 3 colors, no text. He said, I mean, I changed it to easy enough that a 5-year-old could draw it, but he basically says easy enough you can draw it by hand. And there was one other thing that he did say in that.
That you can see it from far away or something?
Yeah, the perspective is on a piece of paper. He actually did, I think, 2 inches by 1.5, where I did 3 inches by 2 inches, because ultimately that is a proportional perspective. So if you figure if you're walking on a sidewalk and you're looking at a flag that is typically displayed at the top of the flagpole, that's the ratio of our perspective to it. And there was a fifth one, but I know the main ones were no more than 3 colors, no text, the design has to fit on that small of amount of a space, and there has to be some connection to the city that is, of course, visually represented. So if you look over to the left, the Palo Alto flag, it does break one of the rules, which is it's got text on there. But it does use only 3 colors, and I think there is a direct correlation between the center image of the tree and the Stanford Cardinal, which Stanford's mascot for a long time was the Stanford Indians, and of course they recognized that there was a time problem with using that as your mascot, so they changed it.
Yeah,
so Melanie, whenever you're ready.
So also, is this considered, since there's white there too, is the gold like considered a 4th color? I kind of wrestled with that.
So anyway. I would say yes, and that's why to me, so what's the 4th color? So you have white and green, and then the text is gold. So it's still only 3 colors.
There's a blue. There's a blue there too.
Oh, I can't see it over here. Where is the blue?
Here, let me move this one over. Here's the original. Oh, you can't see that now. Let me put it over here just for a sec. Oh, sorry. What have I done?
Okay. There we go. Yeah, the blue. Yes. Now I see it. You're right.
All right.
So it's a blue, a white, and a green vertical stripe.
Yeah. So I didn't change a whole lot, but let's see what I did. I can't see anything now. Oh, that's in the way. Okay. So here's my version. It's just, and I wrestled a lot.
There you go. It's that simple.
And I wrestled a lot with did the vertical sections have to be equal, but I liked it better with a little bit wider.
Yeah. And of course, on an actual flag, you would convert the tree that you have here into more of an actual graphic design rather than an image representation. This is great.
I tried to
literally that simple modification makes it fit the rules, and of course it's much more simplistic and more clean of a design.
I was pretty happy with it by the end. I mean, there are things that are not quite white, right? Like the white is not white because I was trying to match the image that I imported, and I tried to import an image and then draw over it, but I'm terrible at that. So
it's totally, what you have there is absolutely brilliant, because you took what we covered last week around principles of design. We looked at a contextual and practical application with the TED Talk around flags, and then you applied your learning into that right there. So technically, if you were a student of mine, you would have not only gotten full credit, but you have created a visual representation of your understanding of what we covered last week. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing that. So Melinda, for you, it's a fun creative exercise to look at doing, which would be around taking a look at watching the TED Talk, and then taking a look at your where you're located, looking at your city flag, and then applying those same principles if you were to do a redesign of it.
And then can I just add one thing? Well, first of all, I had to tweak a lot of things first before I ended up with that. So being simple and having it just the way you want is complicated. Just like your exercise with them writing 750 words and then cutting it down and then cutting it down.
Yes.
But I loved this. Really sparked an idea for like each one of my different class blocks. Sort of after they do the getting to know each other thing, that then they have to maybe design a flag to represent like B block or F block or whatever for my classes. And
perfect.
So yeah. So I appreciate the lesson. I think it's awesome, and you could use it a lot of different ways.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. And if you'll notice, think about, if I go back to, remember I mentioned the whole idea around creativity is you have to have work within constraints and practice restraint. And that's exactly what you did. And think what unfortunately what a lot of people falsely equate that to is you're restricting my ability to be creative, when my argument is no, it's actually unleashing your creativity, because there are certain barriers towards any type of creative exercise that I'm removing. So in other words, if I gave you a like you use Google Drawing, if I said here's a blank Google Drawing template, just design a flag. That's too broad. I got to narrow your focus. But you know, my whole thing is I used to tell the students I want to funnel what you are going to work with. But then the reverse of that funnel is I want to see a whole bunch of different representations of it. And so that's why, Melinda, just to kind of recap what I shared with everyone last week, is one of my favorite creative activities I used to have the students do is everyone would get an 8.5 by 11 sheet of white paper. They had to do their designs in a landscape format. They would all get a blue, red, and yellow colored pencil, which, if you know, there's a secret behind using only those three colors that I would give them. And then they had to use that piece of paper and design your idea of a beautiful and peaceful landscape. And so they all would work with the same three colored pencils and the same size of a sheet of white paper, but the goal was to have something that represented a landscape. And I would tell them, ideally in a class of 45, I would get 45 different representations of that. But you see, I gave them constraints and restraint. Constraints were the materials you work with, and restraint was what I wanted you to do, but then that was it. And so that's why, you know, the whole idea around creativity, it's the exact opposite of what many people interpret as, oh, it's blank sheet of paper and do whatever you want. It's like, now actually you got to do this first. But, you know, my criteria was to just design a landscape. I didn't say, well, you have to include a tree, or you have to include water, you have to do it. Didn't matter. Whatever your interpretation is of that. So this was great. Thank you. So in that context, just something to be aware of for both of you. We had a third person here, but now I guess we don't. So at any rate, is think in terms of good design principles with some of the products or things that you interact with on a regular basis. One of my favorite things that I was going to include here, but I figured because we only have an hour, normally when I do this over 3 hours, I can do it. But like my toaster, for example, my toaster it has a digital display, and it has two things where I can set the time and I can set the temperature, and then space for whatever I'm going to toast. That is it. And if you'll notice, if you look at certain devices we use, the more dials, the more displays, and the more things, that's not simplistic design. And what happens is that we get cognitive load figuring out, okay, I just wanted to be able to do the reason why I'm buying it and maybe a few other features. So when you start throwing more features, it actually, there's a point at which you ascend for the user experience, you plateau, and then it doesn't gradually descend, it drops off and stuff. So keep that in mind. So what I want to do with you two for now is take it to the next level, and that is around the use of imagery. So you all can see the images I have displayed here, yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my first question to you two is the following. So when it comes to distributing information or storytelling or something along those lines, can you guess what that number represents right there? Just take a wild guess.
65% of storytelling is what they see.
Okay. Melanie, you want to take a shot?
I've seen this part before, so I don't want to cheat.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I have. Not last week, but anyway, yeah. But it's great. I need to have stuff more than once. So
okay.
Like memory.
Then we'll share with Melinda together. What does that number represent? Put you on the spot.
Now I'm not going to really remember right, but I think it's like the visual stuff. It's how you can remember things better visually than written.
Yes, exactly. Nice. Yes, thank you. So Melinda, basically any information, story information, anything that is disseminated or communicated, if it's strictly through visuals, our memory retention rate the average is around 65%. You want to guess what it is if it's strictly auditory?
Oh, it's really low.
Throw out a number. Melanie, do you remember the number?
I do not.
It's 10 to 20%. if you
Perfect.
just hear it.
10%.
Yeah, I tell my students that all the time.
Yeah.
That's why they
It's
got to take
10%.
notes.
Yeah, and so this is and so Melanie's familiar with this, but this is so when it's distributed strictly through auditory means, the average memory retention rate is only 10%, and this is where I get into the whole thing around like the lecture model for instruction, you know, and it's interesting because I like to challenge a higher ed audience around the fact that what I say is if you know something you're going to do has an average success rate of only 10%, would you still do it? And of course, they always say no. And I'm like, okay. And then I cite the links to the research and I'm like, when you just lecture, that's it. Just know that only 10% of your students are likely to remember what you're saying.
My whole master's thesis was about how college professors actually have to be teachers. Whereas most of the time they're not.
Oh, no.
They're experts in their field, so they can lecture all day about it, but they don't know how to teach.
Correct. Well, and that goes into what you're talking about, also goes into the whole idea around content understanding and pedagogical understanding. Mm-hmm. I could be a great researcher and know the content, but being able to teach it is a whole different, set of skills that are necessary. So you want to guess what it is when you combine visuals and auditory in a storytelling format?
I'm going to say 80.
Melanie, do you remember I had mentioned?
No, I don't. See how I need things repeated? Maybe 85? I don't know.
Yeah, it's and Melanie, please don't. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just having fun because you've seen some of this before. No, it's actually closer. The average is right around 95 to 98%.
Nice.
And here's the reasons why. One, when information is woven into a narrative that is delivered both auditorily and especially through visuals, but I would say even compelling visuals, we activate more areas of our brain. So there's more cognitive activity going on. And to prove that point, I could even ask you to think of your favorite movie or top 3 movies. Think of the last time you saw one of them, but think in terms of how easily you can recall scenes and lines from those movies, even if you haven't seen it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I can recite Pretty Woman. Yeah. I haven't watched it in a decade, but I could, recite to you.
See, and there you go, because it was delivered with visuals and auditory within a storytelling format that, again, it engages more areas of our brain. We make a visual, an auditory, and an emotional connection to it, which makes it now more memorable. Obviously, the emotional connection is a little bit harder when it comes to instruction, but I equate emotional connection to cultural and contextual relevance. So once you do that, now it becomes more meaningful. I'll share next week personal stories when I was teaching in the classroom where I was able to make contextual and cultural connections of content across all content areas with my students. Like even, for example, the short version would be like science, where, the first question was, just like that homework assignment was, I want you to think about how does anything related to science play a role in your everyday life? I want you to just make a mental note or make a list. Anytime you're doing anything in your everyday life, think in terms of what am I doing of which science might be related to it? And then, of course, the students came in, they had a whole list of things. Then I'm like, okay, say it again.
What isn't science related?
And that's my point. It's science, math, all of it. But the key with that was they made the connection, and then now it was, how do we turn that into a story that is woven within instruction? I don't know why that's happening there. I should have closed that tab, but it's okay. In fact, hang on one second. I'm going to close it.
Taking notes here.
Which window is that in?
That sounded like a Teams ring.
I know which one it's in. It's in this one. There. All right, done. Okay, so continuing on, what we're going to look at now are the 3 different classifications of images And then I'm going to take you all through a couple of activities. Then you're going to do a creative exercise. And then unfortunately, our time will be up for part 2. This is why I divided it into 3 parts. So the key with this exercise we're going to do right now is that no one classification is more important than the other. It's to understand when I'm using visuals, it's not simply search for images and figure out which image to use. It's I need to find images that are going to appropriately augment the purpose of the information I'm distributing, whether it's information that has a numerical value or information that has a qualitative value. So the first one is what's called direct representational. So Melanie, do you remember this by any chance?
I do. And just to let you know, like I never took the 3 days. It was like how you've reduced these to 3 days when you normally have 3 hours. I think you combined all 3. So I just got little bits of it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're doing much more detail now. Got
yeah,
it.
I love it. I love it. But I do remember this.
And we have someone to join us. Sandra, welcome. So what I'm sharing with you all now are, again, let me go back. The 3 different classifications of images. So number 1 is direct representational. So as you look at this image, the question to ask yourself is, how is this a direct representational image? In other words, the text that accompanies the image, there's a direct correlation between the 2. Can you all identify why this is direct representational?
Because these are actual things in real life.
Think in terms of the text and then what's in the image.
Oh, okay. The text too.
Yes. Melanie, if you want, feel free to chime in.
I'm sorry. So we're looking at the healthy eating, right? And what's your question? Just how is this direct?
Yes.
Okay. Because, well, the inference is if you eat these fruits and veggies that you will have a healthy lifestyle. And so there's no thinking about it. They're telling you.
Correct.
If you do this is the result.
Exactly. These are all things that we eat. We associate them with being healthy. And so therefore the correlation is if we eat these things, it's going to support us living a healthy lifestyle. There's a direct correlation between the text and the image. The word says healthy eating. Those are things that we eat. We associate it with healthy. And so therefore we're living a healthy lifestyle. This next one is indirect representational. Thoughts? Why is this indirect? How is this different than that?
Because they don't tell us how, or the image doesn't suggest anything unless it's like I don't even know what that image suggests.
It suggests don't eat very much if you want to be healthy.
So that could be one thing, could be portion control. That's a piece of bread on a plate. So the added part to this is, and Sandra put eat less and you'll be healthier. So the whole idea around this being indirect. So the difference is between this is there's a direct correlation between what's in the image and what the text is. Healthy eating supports a healthy lifestyle. In this one, there's a high degree of inference because it could be the amount that we eat. It could also be that it's bread. So in some cases, we could associate bread with not necessarily healthy eating, although my argument is it depends on what kind of bread. But then it could also be, well, maybe it's a portion control. There's a degree of inference because there isn't a direct correlation between what is the image is and what the text is. So next is, so that's direct representational, that's indirect representational, and then this is abstract. And Daniela, welcome.
Yay.
How is this abstract? So how is this image? So remember, direct representational, there's a direct correlation between the image and the text. Indirect representational, there's a degree of inference between what the image is of and what the text says. And then this is abstract.
Well, there's nothing to eat in that picture.
Okay, keep going.
So, it would seem that healthy eating might also lead to other healthy practices.
Anyone else? Any thoughts to contribute?
So it seems like the first one with the veggies was the healthy eating part, and this is the healthy lifestyle part. Or you'll be able to do this. You'll be able to do this pose if you eat healthy.
So you're touching on a couple of things. So number one, the key here is the relationship between the text and the image. The text says healthy eating supports a healthy lifestyle. So the first question to ask now 4 of you is there anything in that image that we eat?
Not unless that's wheatgrass.
Let's just say that that's not wheatgrass, but yeah, and actually technically you're not supposed to eat wheatgrass. We just juice it, but
that's true.
Correct. So there's really nothing that we eat. Now it says supports a healthy lifestyle. Is what she doing associated with a healthy lifestyle?
Yes.
What's she doing?
Exercising, stretching, flexibility. She's outdoors.
Okay. But we don't know for sure. I mean, it looks like she could be stretching, but we don't know. We don't have any visual affirmations that what she's doing is associated directly with a healthy lifestyle. And in fact, if you want to dig more deeply into this image, I've done this enough where some people say, well, she looks like she's in shape. And I said, well, depends on your perspective, because some people would say it looks like she's too skinny or too thin. So that's why this is abstract, because you see it's more conceptual rather than direct representational, indirect representational, which inference. This is more conceptual. That's why it's abstract. Now, if you were to
can I add something? Just because I think this one is like open to interpretation based on what our own personal experience is.
Bingo. And that's why it's abstract. Exactly. It's open to far more interpretation based on our own context and our own experiences. Now, if I were to switch and say a healthy lifestyle is supported by healthy eating, what would that make this? Direct or indirect?
Direct, if we're assuming, well, maybe indirect. I don't know. You lost me. I mean, because we still haven't identified exactly a healthy lifestyle, it's implying that what she's doing is part of a healthy lifestyle.
Correct. Keep going. So Sandra put direct, but like you just said, there's still a degree of inference because we don't have any visual confirmation of what exactly it is she's doing. So if I were to switch these, which I'm going to update these slides and do it next time, a healthy lifestyle supported by healthy eating, that would make this indirect. Now, if you were to take this image, change the vantage point to where we're up higher and see like a yoga mat in front of her, and then maybe see several other people in the image who are in that same pose, then it would make it direct, because now you have confirmation that what she's doing is a healthy lifestyle because she would be practicing yoga or they'd be stretching prior to some type of an exercise. So that's why it's important to understand the 3 classifications. Direct representational, there's a direct correlation between the text and what's in the image. Indirect representational, there's a degree of inference between the image and the text. Abstract, it's conceptual. There's really not a correlation. And so it's an understanding of, within my own lived experience and my own context, how do the two fit together? And that's why I'm saying no one is better than the other. It's the understanding of, I don't want to just do searches and find a bunch of random images to throw in a slide deck. I have to understand what my message is and what's the most effective way to deliver that message. In some cases, it might be direct, in some it might be indirect, and in some it might be abstract. So Liliana, thank you and welcome. So we have some late joinees. Okay, so here's what I want us to do next. We're going to do an activity. So if you all will go to, that website right there, I'm going to put it in the chat as well. If you go there, that will take you to a folder that has that image in it. And we're doing okay for time. So go to the folder and then download that image. You should see a small sampling of the image, but then a link that'll take you to a larger version of it. And what I'm going to ask you all to do is the following. Put that image in either, whichever platform you're most familiar or most comfortable with. It can go into Keynote on Apple. It can go into PowerPoint. It can go into Google Slides. It can go into Google Drawings. It can go into Adobe Spark. It can go into Canva. It can go into Photoshop. Any one of the above that you're comfortable with. The key here is I'm going to ask a couple of you to add accompanying text to make that direct representational, several of you to make it indirect representational, and then several of you to make it abstract. Now we have some late joinees, so I'm not sure how they'll be able to actively participate, but can you all put in the chat that you've successfully got the image? And in fact, why don't I do this? And you know what? I think there's a way I might be able to, let me try something real quick as well to make it even easier. Okay, there's that. Yeah, here we go. All right, make it easier. So I'm uploading the image into our chat as well. There we go. And so again, just to recap, you're going to get that image and you're going to load it into any platform that you are most familiar with and most comfortable with. And you're going to either add, you're going to add accompanying text to make it either direct representational, indirect representational, or abstract. And that should take you all no more than about, I'd say, 7, 8, maybe 9 minutes max. And then unfortunately, we're going to be towards the end of part 2. So Melanie, now you see why I divided this up into 3 parts instead of it being rushed over the course of only 1 hour. So I'm going to let you all go ahead and be creative. If you need any support, put it in the chat. And I'm going to get some music going for us in the background.
So are we doing any of the options?
Yeah, because normally it's hard for me to do it. When I do this in person, I usually partition a room into thirds and give you specifics. I think for this one, just whichever of those 3, if you really want to challenge yourself, do abstract. If you want to, they're all different challenge levels, but I would say you just want to add accompanying text and make it direct, indirect, or abstract. So I will answer any questions in the chat. The image is also in the chat. You can download it. And I will be back in, I'll get some music going, and I will be back up on screen in just a few minutes.
I made it.
great skateboarding.
You try to avoid the things in your hands. Sorry, an invitation to the dance. The heart is on the street to corazón next to yours. Now you're falling at the beat. You try to get away, but you can't. Tienes esta niña, señorita, más fina. Tienes esta niña, señorita, más fina.
All right, we'll give it about another minute. If you all don't mind to upload your designs, I put the link in the chat. Also, when you go to that Padlet to upload your design, just take maybe another couple of minutes, or really 1 minute, just for time's sake, and you will see designs that others who have done this exact same session have done. And then I'll turn on my camera, and then we'll do the last couple of things for part 2 of this.
Love that. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, some of them are cool. I mean, I'm going to highlight a couple of them in basically just a minute.
Vicky's in the corner with the black coat on, running from bad home with some cat inside. Where did you find her? The morning neon lights that haunt the streets outside. She says, "Stay with me, beautiful girl." Beautiful girl. You wanna go home.
Sandra, I gave it away, didn't it? All right. So let's do a couple of quick things in the time we have left. Let me turn my camera back on, and there we go. Perfect. All right. So thank you all. And thank you for those of you that put in the chat your designs. What I want to do is highlight a couple of things here. So let me go put this over here. So can you all see, can you confirm that you can see the Padlet? Okay, perfect. So everyone sees it. So you see, these are all, so if you go back to my comment around, which many of you are just now joining, I shared a comment earlier and then last week for part 1, that in order to unleash a person's creativity, you have to provide constraints and restraint. Those are necessary conditions for creativity. So the constraints were me giving everyone the same image. The restraint was adding accompanying text that's going to be aligned with any one of those 3 categories, either direct representational, indirect representational, or abstract. And so this is why I love doing this, because if you look at that site, everyone who's gone through this session who's uploaded their designs has gotten the exact same image that you all got, but you see how many different representations there are. And so there's a number of them that I like to highlight, which this is one right here. So if you'll notice, is that direct, indirect, or abstract?
Indirect?
Yeah, it's indirect because it has balance and lifestyle. The key with that is there's no words in it that are directly correlated to what is in the image. And you notice they added another element to it to kind of be a placeholder for the text by putting that triangle on there. And the triangle is centered. See, there's all those little things of design that you don't necessarily notice unless I point them out. So one, the triangle is centered on it. The text is a script typeface that kind of matches, kind of augments the curvature of the forks. And then they use the element, the pyramid, if you will, as kind of like a placeholder for the text. Now, my favorite one of all of these is, where is it? Yep, is this one right here. That's my favorite one.
Jeez.
See that? Is that direct, indirect, or abstract?
That's a really good question.
Okay?
I mean, I think it's abstract, but
It is abstract. Remember, it's conceptual here. And Sandra put that in the chat as well. Yeah, it is abstract. But here's the thing about storytelling and design. If I'm a divorce attorney, that would be a very compelling and memorable ad. Because you see, our first reaction was it's funny. And of course, if you've gone through the process of a divorce, generally that's not necessarily a pleasant experience. So for me, I mean, it depends on what side of the divorce you're on, or if it's an amicable split. But at any rate, for me as an attorney in this case, for representation, it's not my job to tell you whether it's good or bad. It's my job to say, work with us, and we'll make sure you get your fair share. So that's one of my favorite ones on there. But there's another one I want to show you all real quick. See, like this: direct, indirect, or abstract.
We don't see it yet.
Oh, it didn't pop up?
so
now-
I see it.
Okay. And Sandra's already put in the chat. This is direct because there's a red ripe tomato in the image. So again, that's part of your clue is, does anything in the image match the text? And if you'll notice how they did this, where they had all of the text elements balanced, and then pick one that they centered underneath the forks. This is great. This is brilliant design. So anyway, this is, we did that. That's mine right there. Is that direct, indirect, or abstract?
Indirect. Mm-hmm.
It's indirect, because the key word in that points to indirect is balance, because the tomato is balanced with the forks. So you have that. Did you all notice anything else? I know we're running over time by a few minutes. You notice anything else about my design here?
That you match the text color.
Bingo. I matched one of the hues of the red in the tomato to the text. And if you'll notice, and it should appear on your screen, the text is balanced on the screen as well. The distance from the I to the left margin and the T and important to the right margin is the exact same. So you see all of those little things are elements of the story when you're a designer that you want to be mindful of going forward. So we won't do the Google image thing or any of that. I think that's going to cover today. Yeah. So that's it for today. I'll go next week into images and several other things. Let me stop sharing. There we go. Anyway, so that's it for part 2. What I wanted you all to consider doing, I thought I had it in the slides here. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. I'm going to share with you all things for next week. Stand by one second, and we'll go back through some of those because we started a little bit late. Here are some things for next week. All right, we'll cover those. So if you think in terms of your thoughts around design and storytelling, we covered stuff around images, but obviously also what I wanted you all to consider are, how have your thoughts in regards to what you design and some of the examples that I shared with you, how have your thoughts around design and storytelling, maybe how have they evolved in regards to the images that we use, your selection of the images and the accompanying text. You all saw that example of the 1-800-divorce. There's a whole story in that has a contextual background, all with one image and the accompanying text. And so I want you to just think about your thoughts around the use of imagery, especially when you start thinking in terms of those 3 classifications. And what I'd like for you all to consider doing in preparation for those of you that'll join me for part 3 in next week, which I hope you will, is we're going to do a more comprehensive design, storytelling and design activity. So here's what I want you all to do. If you have a cell phone, which hopefully you do, or you have access to a camera, over the course of the next 7 days, so when I see you next week on Thursday, I want you to try to capture one image per day, and it has to fit in any one of these creative thematic areas. So for example, I'll highlight, it doesn't have my, shoot. Darn, it doesn't have my drawing things. So like if I look at motion, so if I think in terms of motion, what are all the different ways I can represent motion visually? It could be my own motion, it could be the motion of something else, it could be forward, it could be backward, it could be circle, it could be, or spiral, it could be up, it could be down, any one of those things. I want you to think in terms of, I have a theme that I want to focus on, and I'm going to capture one image per day for the next 7 days, knowing that you're going to use those images in a whole slide deck that you will create next week, and the story will be aligned with the theme that you select. So you all see, you have a whole lot there. I don't want you to pick, I just want you to focus on one. And that one is going to be the theme of the story you will create next week, and you will use your own images to do it. Next week, I'll cover doing image searches in Google and stuff like that. So that's the end of the session. I've gone over time now. Just make a note of which of those themes you've selected. I'll stick around for a few more minutes if any of you have any questions. And then for those of you, if you're good to go, then I will say thank you for joining me for this. I appreciate your time and you being here. And hopefully I will get to see you next week. If you have any questions, you can turn on your microphone or put them in the chat. I'll stick around for about 2 to 3 more minutes, and then that'll be it. And I'll leave this up if you're still trying to decide which theme to focus on. If you're confused or not sure of what theme, I would say pick whichever of these most resonates with you, that makes it easy for you to say, here's my theme for my creative activities I'm going to do over the course of the next week.
Thanks, Ken. Looks like a cool challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So hopefully I'll see you next week. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Well, have a good week, and thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.